TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Memories of inducting your father into the WWE Hall of Fame. And did you find it ironic that WWE and Vince McMahon were now honoring him? Was it hard for you?
It was a surprise. It was a gesture, and I've worked for McMahon's, and I like them. They're a little ruthless, and anything they can do to help them, they'll do. So I don't know, because they bought the tapes, if that's why they were doing this, or Vince really, I think he really felt he had to do something for Vern. That's what I want to believe. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, and I probably never will know. But I think so.
How did your father feel about the induction?
Well, he was at the point where he was starting to get, he had the Alzheimer's. He thought it was great. I mean, he's the one that just, really was disgusted with Vince. And it was just a whole turnaround. And Vince wrestled a match that night. My dad went in and told Vince it was fantastic. And I think his memory was the point where he didn't remember the things that had happened, or he just said, it's done, it's over with, let's move forward. Because he was like that.
Who wrote his speech?
I did the whole speech. I didn't write it. I just...
Off the top of it.
I always, every time I do a speech, I work on it in my head for a couple weeks before. I never write it, because when I look at notes, I lose my train of thought.
Right.
And I just talk from the heart. And that's always been, tell it the way it is and talk from the heart and be honest with people.
Memories of spending that weekend with him and your family in Chicago?
It was great. I mean, it really was. It was nice. Like I say, the McMahon family treated us with all respect in the world. For his funeral here, they were very generous. Stephanie called me, sent flowers, pictures, tapes, anything we needed, they gave to us, and it was it really helped at the funeral. It really made it a really, if there is such thing as a good funeral. It's the way Vern would have wanted it.
What led to WWE hiring you to work in developmental after?
Well, I went to McMahon in Chicago, and I said, I'd like to come to work for you. It was that simple. That's what I said. And eventually, why I went to the developmental? Well, first, I was used to being booking.
Right.
We had our table, and that's what I thought they did there. So he said, well, do you want to be one of the writers? I said, well, yeah, I can do that. Well, I'm not a good writer. I'm just not. But I went in there, and I thought, it's the same thing. We're booking, and there's going to be somebody Vince will make the final decision. I throw out ideas. And got in there, and all of a sudden there's these guys. Geez, who's this guy? Well, he wrote for David Letterman, him for Seinfeld, I said, writers? What? So I was really out of my element there with that. I just didn't believe in writing an interview for somebody and them creating personalities. The hardest thing for me is when Vince did see this one match, he said, why aren't my guys learning? I said, they're not being trained that. Can you do it? And I said, yes, I can do it. And that's when I went to Louisville and
OVW.
And WWE. And I wrote the show. And their show, actually, I was doing it just like the way we used to do it. Danny Davis, he said, the problem we have here, I got these guys wrestling in these little high schools, and we're only drawing like 15, 20 people. It's not getting them used to, having to really perform in front of people. So we programmed the show. And actually, Danny had sold, I think, 4 or 6 shows to Six Flags. And we programmed it, and I brought Dusty in with Cody, and we had and brought Danny back in a glove match for our final one. And SmackDown was in there on Monday or Tuesday, I think, before us. On the Saturday, and we outdrew them.
I was going to say, you guys outdrew them.
Yeah. And I think that was our downfall.
What was it like working with Danny?
Danny's phenomenal. Danny was old school.
Yep.
And the philosophy that I came from. So it was really easy to work with him and Al Snow. They were fantastic. Al and I had the same feel for what needed to be done in the ring. My problem is, they have coaches outside the rings telling people what to do. You can't tell somebody what to do. You have to get in and show them. That's the way I learned, and that's when you grasp it. So I'd get in the ring with these guys. And that's the way I had to do it. But
Who were the talents that you thought were the best wrestlers that were there when you were there?
Well, you had CM Punk, who, with his appearance, I wasn't sure that he would really fit in. But he had tremendous work ethic, and he could really do an interview. I was taught to do an interview. There's 3 parts to it: the beginning, the middle, and the end. And if you give somebody the beginning and the end, they can fill in the middle. And that's how we used to work with him. That's what I was in charge of. So when Jesse was doing an interview, I said, Jesse, we're in San Francisco. Tie yourself in with, I can't think of the singer from San Francisco. Oh, God.
I don't know.
I'll think of it. Huey Lewis.
Okay, yeah.
We'd always try to tie him in with something locally when we're doing those, and that was my job, to help them find out what was going on locally so they could tie in if they're in Denver, something with the Denver Broncos if they're in the season, or the baseball team. So that's how I was teaching them how to do interviews, and they didn't like that. They wanted me writing them for them. And so we went up. I was called back to the office one day, and I'm with the writers up there, and they're looking for somebody to be a pirate. And I said, a pirate? What the fuck do you need a pirate for? We need a pirate for merchandising. So I forget the kid's name.
Paul Burchill.
Paul, they said, here, take him. I said, he can't be one. I said, he's been in the camp for 2 years. He's finally, it's fucking coming to him. Don't do that to him. They made him a pirate, what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? He's fired. And I said, what do you mean you're firing him? I said, he's been working 2 years. His goal is to be a professional wrestling. Because he can't be a pirate, you're going to fire him? So I think I pissed off a few people, but,
Right.
poor kid. I mean, that's just not fair.